Moving on, some good news.
Oh.
Judge strikes down Florida's anti-trans care ban, finding animus led to its passage.
Oh, that's really good news.
It is really good news until the Supreme Court gets a hold of it, but, Naramdaput says, wait, the laptop wasn't... Naramdaput says, wait, the laptop wasn't even Hunter's? Not likely. Like, unless part of the campaign they actually stole the laptop from him, but, like, it's... The chain of custody on that laptop is so weak that it just, like... It boggles the mind that anybody took it seriously. Like, I think the laptop repair guy ended up... Like, the first person he contacted about it was Rudy Giuliani.
Of course.
So, like... Guy who just got indicted for a bunch of other fraud-related stuff. Not the most trustworthy of sources.
Trump sure knows how to pick his lawyers, not gonna lie.
I mean, at this point, he doesn't have much choice. He has to take what he can get. It's like Todd Blanche is representing him in everything, essentially. And, like... So, like, the lawyer who literally said to the judge, it's my first day, as an excuse for why he was doing so badly...
You're doing fine, son.
His representative in all of his cases now, because nobody else will take him on. Because every lawyer that takes him on ends up either in jail or not allowed to practice law anymore. So, yeah. That's fun.
Don't you just love justice?
Yeah. Well, it's nice when it happens. So back to this story. Judge strikes down Florida's anti-trans care ban, finding animus led to its passage. Just enjoy the good news. Ignore the fact that the 11th Circuit is probably going to overturn this. And if they don't, the Supreme Court probably will. So just don't think about that for now. Just enjoy the good news. So Florida's ban on gender-affirming medical care for minors and several of the provisions restricting such care for adults are unconstitutional, a federal judge ruled on Tuesday, finding after trial that animus impermissibly motivated the legislative and administrative actions. So this is Judge Robert Hinkle. He wrote a 105-page ruling. I toyed with the idea of reading it, but I decided not to.
That's kind of how I was with Project 2025. I knew there's a lot of bad things in it, but it's over 95 pages. It's fucking huge.
I thought it was over 900 pages.
It fucking huge. I
the Morbid Place,
not.
thank you for your 20... Morbid Place, thanks for your 20 bits. Sean Helfin says, oh, did you hear that Alito might be leaving the court thanks to his wife stating it asked about the flag? That would be amazing. If you have a link to a news story about that, send it to news@vicerhino.com, and I will definitely look into it.
So will the real Rice wino please stand up?
Our Chapmang CMG, I don't know how to say that. This person says Trump is helping drain the swamp, one corrupt lawyer at a time.
Now you have to ask the question, is Trump the one corrupting the lawyers at this point?
No. Okay, at this point, if you voluntarily work for Trump, you are already
too
corrupt.
Late for you.
Like, at this point, any lawyer that voluntarily signs on with Trump should just automatically be disbarred as a prophylactic measure. Jesus. He should be stuck with just the public defenders at this point.
Colleen in my chat says Alito is likely to leave if Trump gets reelected. Really?
Okay, yeah, I could see that, because then Trump gets another Supreme Court justice pick, and he's not conservativing the court.
Jesus.
But
something tells me that's not necessarily going to happen, though. I want to live in a world
I've been saying the Morbid Place instead of the Morbid Palace.
I used to do it too. I used to do it a lot.
Yeah. So in the ruling, he wrote, a majority of unbiased legislators and board members likely would have concluded there was no legitimate reason to ban gender-affirming care across the board for all minors. And then that the actions of the Florida Board of Medicine and Florida Board of Osteopathic Medicine, the plaintiffs have shown that animus motivated a sufficient number of statutory decision makers.
So some people in Congress were assholes, and therefore the ruling is stupid. That's basically what that
affirming care.
That's basically what that boils down to. Like, the Congress people were assholes when they did the thing, so fuck them.
Yeah, so he ruled that the across-the-board ban on puberty blockers and hormone therapy for transgender minors is unconstitutional. He ruled that several of the restrictions placed on similar adult care are unconstitutional, limiting the provision of care only to physicians requiring an annual X-ray and bone density scan. Really? They were requiring that bullshit? And other follow-up care for all, regardless of individualized needs, requiring the use of a misleading informed consent form. Okay, having misinformation on an informed consent form should be
means that you're not informing for consent anymore.
Yeah, that is not informed consent. That is misinformed consent. Putting misinformation on an informed consent form should be massively illegal.
You think?
It's so stupid. And limiting mental health assessments to being performed by psychiatrists or psychologists. So, like, we're getting way too invasive with your physical health based on a few very rare side effects from things that you might not even taken as a child if you're an adult at this point. But yeah, we're gonna also make sure that you don't have access to all the mental health resources you could have, restricting it to these two categories of, like, no, it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Yep.
So it's a class action lawsuit, and the relevant state and local officials are permanently enjoined from enforcing the unconstitutional provisions against any adults or minors seeking gender-affirming medical care in the form of puberty blockers or hormones. Worth mentioning is the legislation that he is finding unconstitutional. That's actually one of the reasons we didn't go on vacation to Florida this winter. My dad, most years, he rents a house down in Florida for like a month and a half, and then splits it up into weeks. So, like, 1 week he'll have my sister and her family down. 1 week he'll have me and my family down. The next week he'll have, like, my brother-in-law and his family down. Like, they segment the family. They each get a week, and it's basically a free vacation. You just have to get there and feed yourself while you're there. And I didn't do that this year because it's Florida, and I have one very obviously trans kid and two that are gender non-conforming. So, like, I was not comfortable taking my kids to Florida when this was the environment there.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense.
So, and and we still haven't quite decided where we're going for our vacation that we would actually pay for, but, like, Florida is not even on the list of consideration. And it would have been a few years ago. Like, I know Florida's never been that great of a place as far as, like, politics are concerned, but I've never been concerned about safety just based on identity issues.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they, like, I don't know how big the impact is going to be, but they are definitely missing out on at least some tourism money by being this way.
Yeah.
And that's basically their whole economy down there.
So the thing that sucks for me is that my family all live in Florida. And for me, or not all live in Florida, some live in Alabama. For me, whenever I leave and go to Florida, it's almost always, yep, I'm going to grandma's house. That's where we are. Okay, time to go visit the aunt. Welcome to there. Like, it's all in Pensacola. Then we go to the beach, where you have to pay a toll, where you actually are directly paying for the stuff in the economy, which sucks.
So Van Briggs 333 is saying, now I just need VR's hat size. Well, according to this hat, my hat size is 100% polyester made in China. That's the only tag in here. So
that doesn't help. That doesn't help at all.
It's not my head. It's our head.
That's
because the Russian thing.
Not
Russian.
Yep.
This is USSR. This is USSR,
that just
not Russia.
Sounds like a threesome.
I mean, at this point, with how many times
we've
hinted that, it's not my threesome. It is our threesome.
Jesus
So
Christ.
Hinkle's ruling is strong not just for its careful approach to the law and the underlying issues faced by transgender individuals, but also for his refusal to take the case on DeSantis and friends' terms. So to give some examples, he wrote, so this is not my highlighting, this is in the article, and is the whole article cut off, or is it just that?
It looks like just that part.
That's
everything
weird.
else is kind of right.
It's not even lined up with that's weird.
That's not happened before. That's strange.
Well, it's a picture, not text. But what's weird for me though is that there's a word at the end of the first line, it's not just it at the end of that line. And the is lines up perfectly with where the and is, just up there, just above it. So somehow my cropping is going diagonally without showing it as being diagonal or something. I don't know. I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to read it anyway. I'm just a bit weirded out by how this is happening. So yeah, risks attend many kinds of medical treatment, perhaps most. Ordinarily, it is the patient in consultation with the doctor who weighs the risks and benefits and chooses a course of treatment. What is remarkable about the challenge statute and rules is not that they address medical treatments with both risks and benefits, but that they arrogate to the state the right to make that decision, and do it based in significant part on animus against the patients. Worse, the statute and rules make the same decision for everybody without considering any patient's individual circumstances. The statute and rules do this in contravention of widely accepted standards of care. So, basically, get your government out of my healthcare.
Yeah.
The party of small government that says I don't want socialized healthcare because I don't want government making medical decisions for me is also saying, hey, the government needs to make these medical decisions for you. Can we get some consistency, please?
No, we can't. It's because so unfortunately, the Republican Party has not for a very long time been the party of small government.
Have they ever been?
Once upon a time, possibly.
No, not if you consider military to be part of the government.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair.
Damn,
we've definitely hawkish Democrats, but yeah, no, you're right.
Had hawkish everybody.
It's America.
Like the fact that Joe Biden has done the least amount of drone strikes as any president since drone strikes became a thing is very concerning. Anyway, and so there's a section addressing the state's claim that medical organizations that support gender-affirming medical care are biased, and so he addressed that by saying the defendants say, in effect, that the organizations were dominated by individuals who pursued good politics, not good medicine. If ever a pot called a kettle black, it is here. So that will forever be a thing in Florida's legal history. That a judge was like, hey, you guys are just the pot calling the kettle black. Stop being hypocrites.
I'm actually kind of happy about that. Not even gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
Like Florida's kind of known to be the crazy armpit of the United States. So having an actual legal ruling where they've had to look at the politicians in Florida and go, this is why.
Yeah, that's fair. And so he also, importantly, took pains to distinguish his decision from the August 2023 ruling of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, which held that Alabama's similar ban was constitutional. So in that ruling, they explicitly said that they were not considering the issue of animus. And so since he went out of his way to make this mostly about animus, then that circumvents their reasoning. So where does it say this? Okay, so it says, because Florida is within the 11th Circuit, he is obligated to follow the 11th Circuit's precedents. I disagree. I think in the past, it was seen as judges are obligated to follow precedent. But given, like, anyone who follows even passingly the Supreme Court's activity of recent years, they follow precedent when it's convenient for them. And then when it's not convenient, they say, oh, well, this is all about our long traditional history of such and such. And they make up whatever long traditional history they're considering, because like sometimes they go back to common law of the 1600s for their long traditional history. Other times it's the long tradition since 1986.
It just depends on what they need it to be.
Yeah, and then I forget what the case was, but there was one where like it was like the long tradition that they were drawing on was something that originated in the 1980s, and they were talking about it as if it was this long ago bygone time, and it's like, buddy, the judge who made that decision is still alive. You can call him and ask him about that decision and his reasoning, and like what they said about it wasn't even correct. So it's like, you could have called him up to consult on that, but you didn't. And like, he would have told you to go fuck yourself. Not like, obviously not in those words, but like...
Shouldn't he though?
Okay, so apparently the lower court judges are bound to follow precedent. SCOTUS legally doesn't have to give a shit. SCOTUS is, all intents and purposes, above the law. So yeah,
that's great for
I'm not really
that we don't get to elect.
Surprised about that, but like, given that... No, I think elected judges are a bad thing, because then you end up with judges that are like extra harsh on minor crimes, so they can say, look at how many criminals I've convicted, just so that they can get reelected. So like, I would rather judges be appointed, but they can't be lifetime appointments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also like SCOTUS is above the law, but there's actually nothing. There's no real way that they can enforce that. Like, if Congress just decided to ignore a Supreme Court ruling, they could. And that was actually in the 1970s when they expanded the court to what it is today. Like, what is it? 9? No,
it's 9 circuit judges right now.
It's nine judges now. Used to be 7. When they expanded to 9, before that happened, there were a few times when like Congress would just ignore the Supreme Court rulings and pass laws anyway, and those laws would get enforced anyway. And that kind of like, we need something like that to happen again, where we're just like, nope, SCOTUS has lost. They had lost the plot, so we're just going to do our own thing over here until they get their shit together.
Regardless.
Yeah, so we're just going to do our own thing until they get their shit together. So that would be nice, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. It'd be nice if they expanded the court again.
I mean, considering that we have more districts than we have Supreme Court judges, there is an argument that we actually don't have an accurate representation of our districts in our Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. That's what most of the arguments I've seen for expansion of the court have been, is that the Supreme Court is supposed to represent those lower districts, and we have...
Otaku Senpai says, even with lifetime appointments, there should be some mechanism to remove a corrupt or incompetent judge from their position. There is. The problem is, none of the Republicans are going to, like, the mechanism relies on the idea that all the lawmakers in Congress are reasonable people who are not, like, they're not going to put partisan politics above their integrity. So, like, I think it requires a 2/3 majority or something to actually, like, because you can convict a Supreme Court justice, and once convicted, or no, you can impeach them, and once they're impeached, they can be convicted. But it takes a lot of votes that are just not going to happen in the current political climate.
Yeah.
But yeah. So he entered a preliminary injunction in this case back in June of 2023. Yeah, so this is, he is not... Yeah, so you need a supermajority of 66% to remove a sitting Supreme Court judge. So yeah, that's 2/3, yeah.
Which you're not gonna see happen.
Not in this climate. Like, we can't even get past the filibuster at this point. Van Briggs says, I'm going to buy VR a gay octopus hat similar to the one, my favorite one that he has. Nice. Love me some gay octopi. So yeah, he Judge Hinkle is like the good judge in the 11th Circuit. So he entered a preliminary injunction in this case back in June of last year, and he also ruled against Florida's ban on Medicaid coverage for gender-affirming care. So we like Judge Hinkle.
And I feel like it's just kind of we know that being trans, as far as as far as our systems can tell, is something that is medically associated, because what we do with it is we look at it from a psychological point of view, we look at it from a biological point of view. From the biological point of view, we do things like prescribe hormones and do surgeries. So it's almost as if most of those decisions should not be in the hands of obstinate, stupid fuckwad politicians,
Yeah,
and instead should be in the hands of, the people engaging in the medical care.
Yeah. It's just like abortion. It should be a... Drew Harrison says it's octopodes or octopuses. I am aware that... Actually, I've looked into this because octopus is a weird word where like its etymology has like two of the original languages or something. Basically, any pluralization is grammatically correct. So yeah, octopodes works, octopi works, and octopuses work. Octopuses is what I go with when I'm trying to be proper. Octopi is what I do when I want to be funny. Yeah, anyway.
Is it not octopi?
No. I mean, yes, but no.
Who the fuck lied to me?
People who like being pedantic but didn't really have good grounding for their pedantry.
Crap.
I'm Googling it now. Both octopuses and octopi are acceptable plurals for octopus. Of the two, octopuses is the simpler and more commonly used. The proposed plural of octopodes is based on the plural of the ancient Greek word from which octopus ultimately derives, but it's rarely used outside of the octopuses versus octopi debate.
Okay.
That's according to dictionary.com. So octopi, the favoring for that is in Latin. There's a class of words that end in US, and those words get pluralized by replacing the US with I. Many English words with strong roots in Latin have retained this pluralization. And there is... So octopus is a Latinized form of a Greek word. So in Greek, it would be octopodes, and in Latin, it would be octopi.
Okay.
But
fair enough, I suppose.
Octopuses is the most commonly used plural. Anyway.
Ruby Muschiara, thank you very much for the follow.
Zarkfi says, just don't get Vice started on the mooses versus meese debate.
I'll say meese because it's the funnier one.
I'll say meese because it doesn't make sense that it's goose but not geese. Or goose and geese but not moose and meese. I don't know. We're English and plurals just don't get along in general.
They can if we try really hard.
So in addition to saying it was like based on animus, he also laid out other reasonings for his ruling. Under like equal protection and parental rights, things that conservatives supposedly love. And his finding that he would not even uphold the ban under a rational basis review. He also laid out at the end of each of those sections. He also laid out at the end of, I think there's some punctuation missing there, whatever. But yeah, so some legislators plainly acted from old-fashioned discriminatory animus, he detailed, noting disturbing hateful language about transgender people being mutants in a House hearing, and added, other House members, the governor and the Surgeon General, have said there is no such thing as transgender identity. That's transgender identity is just ideological or made-up wokeism.
So he's just using all kinds of made-up words now.
No, he's using the GOP's words against them. Like, so when he's showing that this bill was passed in animus, rather than by looking at the actual... like, rather than having any actual reason to pass it, it's just pure bigotry. He's pointing out that, like, oh, these people are saying that being transgender is made up or wokeism, even though the medical community says otherwise. So clearly, they're wrong. And then he quoted a sponsor of the bill making the one joke that they have, who said, "I can say I'm a porcupine, but that doesn't make it so."
We will never actually get away from this shit.
I want to get to one more thing before we move on. So I've already talked about most of this. All right, here we go.
I'm fucking damn it.
Ooh. Adam Broughton says, "My understanding is that the plural of moose is moose." It is. Fun fact: I lived in Northern Ontario, which has moose for 5 years. I assuming that's you lived in Northern Ontario for 5 years, and Northern Ontario has moose, as opposed to Northern Ontario only had moose for a 5-year period.
The moose existed here for 5 years, and then tragically, all went extinct.
Yeah, and then Donald Jaramillo said in Greek it would be octopodes. Okay. I barely speak English, okay?
I try not to speak English. I try to speak in wokeism. I've heard it's a language. So, at least I've been told that.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't highlight these things, because this is quite key here. So this is another screenshot from his ruling. He said, "The opposition to transgender individuals and their freedom to live their lives is not different in kind or intensity from the animus that has attended racism and misogyny. Less as time has passed, but still today. And some transgender opponents invoke religion to support their position, just as some once invoked religion to support their racism or misogyny. Transgender opponents are, of course, free to hold their beliefs, but they are not free to discriminate against transgender individuals just for being transgender."
You are free to be an asshole. You are not free to use being an asshole.
I picture him having written that thing and then having a microphone beside his desk that he just picked up and dropped off the side as he wrote that. Another hat. Well, since we're talking about it...
The octopus hat? The knitted one? You're a knitted puss.
Oh, God.
Something, probably.
What?
You're a knitted puss.
A knitty puss.
Your English got a trench coat?
English is already just like 3 or 4 languages in a trench coat pretending to be a new language. So English doesn't need to wear a trench coat over top of the trench coat. Donald Jaramillo for $2 says, if there is two, I think that's supposed to be TWO. If there's 2 items of animus, would that be animi? It'd be animagi.
God damn it.
Animagi.
Said English is 3 drunk languages in a trench coat.
Yes. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, some good news from Florida with a judge who fucking rules. I nominate him for the next Supreme Court justice. And I nominate him to replace Alito.
This motherfucker can actually read.
Yeah, and write.
Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Nixie Chan, the Oberon team, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.